This is Terry White, author of the Better Minneapolis newsletter and podcast host. I'd like to invite you to become a paid subscriber. You'll gain access to the archive, exclusive live chats, and happy hours. Most importantly, you'll be supporting this reader-supported effort to bring news and commentary focused on Minneapolis to a broader audience. Thank you for listening to today's interview. Good morning. I'm talking with Mayor Jacob Frey. Good morning.
Good morning.
So my first question is, you were elected in 2017 and you're now seeking a third term after what's been a pretty turbulent 8 years in Minneapolis. So what motivates you to run again?
I want to show that democratically run cities can work. We have been through great adversity over the last several years. We've gone hand in hand facing some of the most difficult issues that this world could offer. And our city is coming back and we're getting real results. And I'm running for one final term here to get the job done. And there's certainly still work to do around housing affordability, around public safety, around police reform. And I want to make sure we've tied up the loose ends, setting the next mayor up for success. And I mentioned democratically run cities need to be able to show that they can work. We need to get the basics right.
Yeah. And this is, just touching on what's happened recently, the shooting of Melissa Hortman and her family and the Hoffmans. Just curious, what went through your mind when you heard about that, and have these events changed anything about how you're campaigning or public service or showing up in public?
First, I was sickened. We learned of the horrific assassination of a great leader in Melissa Hortman very early in the morning. When you get a call before 6 a.m. Or after 11 p.m., and it's from either a state official or the chief, something bad happened.
Yeah.
And so I had certainly braced myself for difficult news, but I wasn't expecting what I heard. It's shocking. It's disgusting. And there wasn't a lot of time to sit in that grief because we very quickly had to turn around to communicate with public officials and protect them. And so I was immediately on the phone with our city team, with our chief and our cabinet to make sure we were quickly getting information, disseminating it, and then having our police officers work directly with a number of other jurisdictions to keep any targeted or potentially targeted individuals safe. This was very early on. We did not know yet where the perpetrator was. And this began an extensive manhunt and security operation that was deeply concerning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think your question was, did it change my perspectives? I mean, I don't think you can go through, or I don't think you can be part of a horrific event like that, even indirectly, and not have it change your perspective. And death threats are all too familiar to me.
Yeah.
This is not about me, to be very clear.
Yeah.
But it is. It's not about me. This is about a tremendous leader in Melissa. And yeah, I mean, you get some form of death threat every couple of weeks. Sometimes it's from the far right. Sometimes it's from the far left. And I just want to add, though, that Melissa was a model of a public servant. She was the thing that all of us strive to be. She was pragmatic. She was thoughtful. She put good governance and action ahead of petty politics. I mean, she did that every step of the way through her public service career, and it's just a tragedy. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I know they're thinking of increasing security at the state capitol. I
Yep.
didn't know if that's happening downtown or not.
Yeah, increasing security at City Hall is something that we've long explored. As of right now, we aren't able to prevent guns from coming into City Hall. The state law says that guns are, generally speaking, allowed in public buildings, with the exception of places where there's a courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there used to be courtrooms in City Hall. They've all been moved over to Hennepin County. And so there is quite a bit of thought happening both locally and statewide of how can we better protect people in what should be a sacred space, a space where you can have good, thoughtful deliberation, where you can disagree constructively without the fear of political violence. And there's a form of process that allows for some form of fairness, or there should be. And
you've moved back in there, right? City Hall.
I have word
for business now.
City Hall is very much open for business. The mayor's office has moved to a different location in City Hall.
Yeah.
The council office has expanded to where the mayor's office previously was, and we were moved over to same floor but the other side.
I got a chance to walk through it before
Yeah.
you moved in, so that was fun.
Yeah.
So, what would you say that critics often get wrong about you, and have there ever been any times where you've, say, listened to something that a opposition or critic has said and reconsidered a position?
To the first, there's often an assumption made that values are not commonly held if there's a difference of strategy. There's an assumption that the overarching goal that we all are striving to meet is different simply because the route of getting there is not entirely in line.
Is there an example?
And that doesn't
that
make.
comes
There's
to
a
mind,
ton
or?
of examples. Yeah, there's a ton of examples. First I'll just say, in virtually any other city in the entire country, I'd be considered quite progressive.
Yes.
And I have always thought of myself as that. But I'm not going to abdicate my responsibility to do what is best for the city. And I'm not going to let ideology get in the way of good governance and truth. And I have a goal, like I believe most everybody in this city, of creating more affordable housing, deeply affordable housing. In fact, we have done that at record levels. 8.5 times the amount of deeply affordable housing since before I took office. And we are getting better results than virtually any city in the country.
And do you attribute that to zoning changes, or?
I attribute it to a combination of subsidy and supply. Subsidizing to get deeply affordable housing, zoning changes to allow for a diversity of housing options in every neighborhood, and yes, supply of housing in general to meet the demand. Simple supply and demand economics. And yes, it has shown to work.
Yeah.
And so, to the extent people say anecdotally that the rents are too high, yes, sure, you are right. But you also got to lift your head up and look at what's happening around the rest of the country, and we're getting better results than virtually anywhere. Given that we all, again, so you were looking for examples, we all do have a goal of making Minneapolis a place where everybody can live affordably. That is a goal that I share. I don't agree that rent control is the mechanism to achieve that goal. Why? Because time and again, it has been shown not to work. Not based on my opinion, but based on objective criteria extensive analysis of virtually every single city that has ever tried it. And I say virtually because I'm not aware of a single city where this has ever worked. I'm just saying virtually to be careful.
Okay.
It has not worked. And I'm not going to lead Minneapolis down a route that may be politically expedient, but is bad for the city. And believe me, it was politically expedient. It has been politically expedient oftentimes.
Well, you sort of have the advantage of looking across the river, right? At St. Paul. I mean, they're starting to.
They're trying to get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It hasn't worked. That's one example.
So how about when
defunding the police?
Yeah.
Another example. And people want to dismiss that as simply a philosophical conversation. Well, I got to tell you, I was there when it was very real.
Yeah.
When it was something that people on the city council and people in public were actively advocating for. In many cases, they still are. I believe in safety. I trust that they also believe in safety. I believe in police reform. I trust that they also believe in police reform. I did not believe that defunding the police was the mechanism to achieve that goal, and I still do.
So where's the, obviously you have to collaborate with the city council and critics and stuff. So is there any issues you can think of where they've kind of changed your position or strategy based on their own arguments?
My positions have not changed drastically throughout my time in office. The world around us has.
Yeah.
There have certainly been instances. Okay, yeah. Well, this is not. I don't know that this is so much a critic. In fact, he's a partner. But he did change my perspective on youth recreation. It's Al Bangura. So Al Bangura came into my office and was talking about a form of youth recreation that was involving these what are now Sparked Studios. If you're familiar, they're in the park.
Yeah, they're great.
They're great. Initially, I didn't get it. Now, to be clear, I wasn't advocating against them. I just didn't get it. I've experienced recreation as sports, track and field and soccer and basketball. Kids out running. And if it didn't involve sweat, it wasn't recreation. That was a pretty narrow-minded perspective. Al explained that, well, no, actually a lot of them are coding and gaming and working with textiles. They're mixing music. Mm-hmm. They're doing all sorts of stuff that I had no experience with as a young kid. And maybe I wouldn't have been interested in it. Who knows? But there are people that are interested in it.
Yeah.
And it's working. And so that's an area where, again, it wasn't that I was advocating against him. It's just that it took me some time to understand what he was saying. And I was convinced. And I funded it and put it in the budget. And it's spectacular right now.
Great. Yeah. Great. Yeah, I've been in a couple of those studios. My kids use the parks a lot. So I hope it continues to be a success and kids use it for sure. You've said that you want to finish the work that you've started. And so what now are those top 3 themes in your campaign? And are there any particular accomplishments or that you feel best represent those themes that you've?
Yeah. The themes, the issues that we focus on and have been working on have not changed dramatically. The way we approach it, the circumstances around the world, they've changed. From the very beginning, it was housing. It was public safety and police reform. It was economic recovery, economic development. And we've added also climate and just general good governance in there as well. There's an overarching one that I mentioned from the very beginning, which is just to show that democratically run cities can work. It's to show that we can get the basics right. The fundamentals that people expect out of their local government are operating with the kind of precision and reliability that people expect rightfully.
Mm-hmm.
it is easy to get sidetracked in during a time of chaos or tumultuousness. Is that a word?
That's a word.
There you go.
It is. I mean, I don't mean to interrupt you, but when I think back of your 8 years, it really is amazing the amount of sort of not even, I don't know if you call them once in a lifetime, but
Got a lot of them.
lot of events that you've had to work through. Yeah.
And I mean, I've said this a lot on the campaign trail, and it's really true. I'm not the same person that I was when I first took office. I'm certainly not the same mayor. You gain thicker skin. You get a deeper understanding of what works and what doesn't. You're able to solve issues on a much more rapid and quick pace. I mean, we can address issues now in 10 minutes that would have taken us the better part of a day initially. Why? We've been through it. We've seen it. We've experienced it, and now you have clarity as to the right direction to go, and you also know with clarity what doesn't work.
So those three themes that you mentioned, which it's funny to me because they're the same themes when you first ran.
Yeah.
They were the same themes for the mayors before you.
They're the same. I mean, I've seen speeches from Humphrey going back 75 years or something now.
Mm-hmm.
What is he talking about? Housing, safety, economic development, police reform, race equity. I mean, the issues have not changed. We've made improvements. The arc of justice has continued to bend. We've certainly made improvements, but I am a strong believer that in 30 years from now, we will have made substantial progress, and those issues will still be on the table.
So
you asked also, like, what are some examples of some things that?
Yeah, so affordable housing, is there going to be any kind of new initiatives or, what's the plan, I guess, to continue along the path that you've been on?
We're going to do what works.
Yeah.
And that is subsidy of housing, supply of housing. That's programs like Stable Home, Stable Schools that has now successfully housed over 6,000 kids in our Minneapolis public school system. That's doing the work to protect naturally occurring affordable housing and provide home ownership opportunities for people that have traditionally been deprived of it. The work that we are doing, again, is leading the nation. I can't overstate this in that we talk about affordable housing here, and certainly, we get critique. When we go nationally, when we talk to mayors around the country, we talk to the former Secretary of HUD, they're all asking about what we are doing in Minneapolis to get results that are far superior than the ones that they're getting. We are the model that others are trying to copy. And so, I mean, again, to those that, to any of my opponents that will say that they want to improve affordable housing, what specifically do you want to do that we haven't done yet?
Mm-hmm.
Rent control is the only one that I've heard about. And again, that doesn't work.
Right.
And so everything else that they've mentioned, we are doing. Second issue, safety. We need to rebuild our police department, and we're doing it. As you may have seen, we just passed 600 officers for the first time in years. We're netting substantially positive. The officers that are coming in want to be part of the change in this department. And we now have the most diverse police department in our city's history. The progress is afoot. It's happening. And we need to keep that trajectory of bringing more officers on going. That will help with safety. Certainly, it will help with 911 response. It'll help with police community relations so that officers have the time to engage with people and they aren't simply running from traumatic 911 call to traumatic 911 call.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty early. I mean, I saw this morning there was a 11-year-old shot and killed in the park. It does seem like a very tough thing to balance, right? Because people want, and I think I've heard you praise this as well, things like behavioral crisis centers and things of that nature, and they want to try different unarmed approaches to policing, but then clearly there's still violence happening. So how do you balance all that?
Well, what you try to do is improve the specificity of the response, providing a unique skill set to the unique circumstances that are happening on the ground. And we recognize that one of those responses is mental health,
Yeah,
where it's not dangerous, where a mental health responder could go out without a police officer alongside them to deal with an issue. There are other circumstances where we believe it to be a safe circumstance, but we don't know. And so maybe that requires the mental health responder and the police officer to go out together. And there are some situations, tragically, that are not safe. And yes, you need a cop.
yeah,
And so we're going to continue to build out that approach. And for those that'll say that we don't need more police officers when we have fewer officers per capita than any city in the country, major city that I'm aware of, I disagree.
yeah. For that third theme that you mentioned, the economic development, could we focus on Uptown? I mean, obviously, that's an issue I've written about quite a bit. I've seen you speak at a couple of different events that were held there. Is there? There's no easy path for bringing Uptown back, but it seems like people are trying. What do you see the city's role is in helping Uptown, and sort of how does that fit into? I mean, obviously there's bigger issues downtown with commercial rents and things like that, but in terms of Uptown, how does the city help that?
Most importantly, we have to create a foundation from which great ideas can rise. We need to create the canvas so that these extraordinary entrepreneurs can come in and paint it with their own creativity. That's the most important piece. That's a foundation of safety, both reality and perceived. That's a foundation of cleanliness. That's making sure that people have access to businesses and then that those businesses can ultimately succeed. And there's a number of programs that we've got in place, whether that's the additional police officer presence that we've had along some of these corridors, or it's the facade grant improvements. Some of it is also the Vibrant Storefronts initiative, where we're literally placing artists in some of these vacant storefronts, allowing that artist to display their beautiful craft, enabling the owner to have a tenant, and also creating a dynamic on the street that is vibrant and literally colorful.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a bunch of different examples. And I've also told people that I can make two promises about Uptown over the summer. The first is that you will see the buds of progress. There's going to be a number of small businesses that are opening. There are areas where progress will take place this summer, and you'll see it and you'll feel it. And the second promise is you won't be satisfied with it. It's going to take longer for this rejuvenation to take place in full. Uptown has been through many evolutions at this point. I mean, the number of times that I've heard somebody tell me, even before I was in elected office, that Uptown was dead, couldn't count on it. I mean, Uptown was dead in the early 2000s. Uptown was dead in 2011. Uptown was dead in 2017. Uptown was, repeatedly, Uptown is dead. I've heard people declare it, The truth is that Uptown has changed, and that we're about to go through a significant rejuvenation that will lead to the next phase.
Okay. So another issue, one I think that we agree on quite a bit, is that it'd be great to get more local government aid from the state,
Yep.
right? And I'm just wondering, I know state legislature has finished up its business, so where do we stand in terms of local government aid? Is it going to help the budget this year? Are we getting what you expected, or?
We weren't cut, certainly weren't cut substantially in local government aid. But local government aid was slashed back during the Pawlenty administration some 20 years ago. And that cut had a devastating impact on the financial status of cities. So, yes, we need more local government aid. And we're also doing the necessary work at the city level to find efficiencies, to recognize the shift of the property tax base, which is presently taking place, and to punch through this, this difficult wall of fire, ring of fire, as quickly as we possibly can, so that we're on to the next phase of how downtown functions, how real estate is valued, because it is changing right now.
Yeah.
And that is the case under mayors throughout the country. That would be the case under any mayor here. And so we have a plan as to what that next phase will look like, and we're working with our private sector partners to get it done.
Okay. So in this race, it seems as though there's a lot of democratic socialists that have influenced the DFL's leadership and their policy agenda. How would you describe their platform and how it maybe differs from your own priorities?
So I don't want to put words in their mouth. They have their platform. It's publicly available. You can look it up.
Yeah.
I will say what I've heard from a number of people, not specifically talking about DSAers here. I've heard that, in order to counter Donald Trump, you got to run to the opposite extreme. And the opposite of extremism is not the opposite extreme. The opposite of extremism is good, thoughtful governance, where you're listening to the data, you're valuing the opinion of experts, and you're loving your city more than your ideology. And sometimes it takes some courage to tell your own side of the bipartisan system what they don't want to hear. But we need more people that have the guts to do that. More people that have the guts to tell these MAGA extremists what they don't want to hear. Why? Because they're wrong. And I believe there's a lot of Republicans that know they're wrong, but won't say it out loud.
Yeah.
We also need people that have the guts to tell the far left what they don't want to hear. When things don't make common sense, just saying it.
Yeah.
I think the fact that I have said it and told the truth certainly has, put me in the path of quite a bit of vitriol. But if you look through the history of what I've said and the positions that I've took vis-a-vis that side, I've been right.
Yeah.
Rent control, I was right. Defunding the police, I was right. And there's a litany of different issues here where, again, it was hard in the moment, but now the position that I held at the time when it was tough is the position that virtually everybody is now taking. Encampments is another one. We didn't really get to this. This is another example where there's an assumption that there's a different value when there's not. There's a different strategy in getting there. I don't believe that large-scale homeless encampments are the right route for getting people into long-term and permanent housing, and that's the goal. Why? Because we've seen the data show that. If you really want to get somebody in long-term permanent housing, the best way to do it is not through a homeless encampment. If you want to make a neighborhood safe, if you want to make the people in the homeless encampment safe, the best route is not through a large-scale homeless encampment. I care about the people that are in these encampments, and I care about their safety. I've seen the data and I've seen the results. They are not safe in them.
Yeah.
Not to mention the surrounding neighborhood. We have seen a dramatic reduction in 911 and 311 calls since the significant reduction of homeless encampments on the south side. If you look at those neighborhoods, 911 and 311 calls have gone down by almost 80%. That is staggering.
That's a lot.
And that's the last figure that I've seen. Maybe it's changed since then, but regardless, it has been substantial.
So that position, the change in how you deal with the encampments and some of the other ones have, had a lot of critics firing at you from all different sides, as you mentioned earlier. So, how do you deal with all that criticism? And as you're out campaigning, like, how do you differentiate your positions from the critics without really escalating, some of the rhetoric because I feel like a lot of people do get, a bit cynical when they see so much just vitriol coming out of the campaign. So I guess that's a two-part question. Like, how have you learned to handle the criticism? And
I will work in good faith with anybody that's willing to work in good faith with me. I will have a constructive conversation with anybody that's willing to have a constructive conversation with me. I encounter the vitriol with a willingness to say, hey, if you're going to say that, you should have the courage to have a conversation. Every time somebody approaches me with some sort of vitriol or name calling, whatever it may be, I say, all right, I hear you. I don't even know what issue you necessarily have yet. I don't know what it is that you care about. You could be a Republican or it could be a Democrat. And by the way, it's almost 50-50 in terms of the criticism that I get on the street.
Yeah.
By the way, the vast majority is positive. The vast majority, 19 out of 20, is positive. But yeah, on that 20th, sometimes it's from the right, sometimes it's from the left. And I always say, do you have the courage to have a conversation? Sometimes they don't. And I find that that's unfortunate because what that tells me is that you don't actually want to hear the facts and you don't want to talk and you certainly don't even want to have your opinion expressed. You just want to yell.
Yeah.
But you got to look at it from the perspective of sometimes when people are yelling, they're just caring really loudly. And
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, and that's not my quote, by the way. I think that comes from Parks and Rec, but it's a good one. But once they do have the conversation, a lot of times they find that there's actually not a lot that you disagree with.
Right. So when you end up, let's assume that you're elected again and you're at the end of your next term. What to you would be a sign that you've been successful as mayor?
We want to provide the kind of steady, ongoing leadership that puts our city on the trajectory to success. Safety has got to be a top priority. We want to see crime continue to drop. Housing opportunities for people that need them. We want to see that continue to increase. I want to finish off this government structure shift, which may be the most important thing that I ever do in public service that nobody ever cares about until 15 or 20 years from now.
Are you referring to strong man or what? Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say no one cares about it.
You care. I mean, it's let's just put it this way. It's generally not. It's usually not something that you put on a piece of campaign lit.
Well, the average voter may not care, but certainly people in the city council and others are.
It's the most. It is likely the most important thing that I'll ever do in public service. That has long-term ramifications for anything that we could possibly work on, from housing to justice to street cleaning, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
And while the system has 75% has been, maybe 80% has technically changed, there's still more work to go. And even once the technical change happens, and this is happening now, there's still 100 years worth of culture that's baked into the mortar of City Hall that needs to shift. And I want to, again, have these necessary discussions, make these necessary moves so that the next mayor can run a city. That doesn't mean legislate a city. That doesn't mean take over the responsibility that should traditionally be held with the legislature and the city council. That means they're able to do the good work of an executive mayor. And again, some people call it strong mayor. It's not. It's a regular mayor system. It is the system that virtually every like mid-sized large city has throughout the country, whether it's Chicago, New York, St. Paul, Duluth, the state of Minnesota, the federal government.
Yeah.
This is the system that all of these forms of government has, where there's clarity. There's clarity as to who controls what. And we're trying to make it even more clear.
So to end our time here, I like to do something a little bit fun. So what do you do outside of, I mean, I know mayor's probably an 80-hour a week job, if not more, but how do you stay grounded? Are there any like hobbies? I think you used to run, but how does the mayor continue to stay recharged and have energy? And what's your secret?
I mean, first I recharge with family. I've got the strongest, toughest, most badass wife. And she is extraordinary in her own right. She's an attorney, works in Lynn Lake area, doing clean energy work. And she also picks me up, puts me back together every night. And to have her in my corner is not just important, it's critical. Never in a million years would I be able to do this without her. We've got one kid who's 4.5, Frida. We got another who's on the way and a few weeks from right now. And yeah, family keeps you grounded. And I asked Frida, what she thought I did for a living. She said, "Oh, you're the mayor." I go, "What does a mayor do?" She goes, "Well, you talk on the phone."
Yeah,
she's not wrong.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I think people often forget that through these public servants that you may have heard about or seen, but you forget they're also just human beings with flaws and idiosyncrasies. Got your own little weirdness to you. Everybody does. I mean, I guess the regular things I do. I'm a runner. Running's always been my passion. That is an outlet for me. It used to be for competition. Now it's for emotional wellness, physical wellness, in a way that it never was in the past. By the time I finished my running career, I didn't want to run anymore. I couldn't stand it. But now I'm finding a renewed love for just the motion and the activity. I did running for competition.
Are you going to be running in the I think the Twin Cities Marathon is coming up?
It's yeah, they have it in October. I haven't entered at this point. I did it in 2021. I just kind of jumped in it, without really training for it. I may, who knows? I may do that again.
Okay. So, anything that you wanted to talk about today that we didn't touch on?
Anything else about me that I personally that I should tell people? Not really.
Touched on everything.
Yeah.
Wide ranging interview.
Yeah.
Oh, it was good.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you. Really appreciate the time.